What is up, Raider Nation? It is I, Biggs, at Big Boned FFB over on the Twitter machine. I'm flying solo tonight. I guess when there's not a whole lot. Oh no, I am not flying solo. I got a buddy. Tyler Smith is in the building. Let's go, Raider Damas. How you doing, bud?
Hey, doing great. How are you?
I'm excellent this week. I was sick as a dog last week. And basically, I was just about to say, I guess when there's not a lot of news happening with the Raiders, not a lot of people want to take time to jump online and chat about it. But Raider Nation are here. Raider Damas is here. Biggs is here. Get the comments fired up. I'll probably wait for that little eye to tell me that one person is watching and then say, hey, jump in the comments. Give us a shout, whatever. But, we're here because we do it for the love. It's all about the love of Raider Nation. It's all about the passion. And nothing is going to deter me. Not zero viewers, not zero comments, not zero co-hosts. Nothing is going to deter me because I love doing this. I love talking Raiders, and that's what I'm doing. So, let's get into it. Nothing happened.
Not to the Raiders. However, I do want to talk about the Houston Texans for a second.
Okay.
They went out and got Stephon Diggs, which is huge for them. If you look up "win now" in the Urban Dictionary, you're going to find a picture of the Houston Texans. And the reason they can win now is because they have their quarterback in place, and so they have the luxury of making all these moves because they have a quarterback on a rookie contract, and they have the correct quarterback on a rookie contract. And frankly, if we listened to Dave Ziegler and gone out and got C.J. Stroud for ourselves, we'd be in their spot. So as long as the Raiders get the quarterback that they're comfortable with and that quarterback turns out to be successful, these are the kind of moves the Raiders down the road can be making. The Texans are by far, I think, at this point, the best team in that division, with apologies to the Jaguars. And I think they've set themselves up for deep playoff runs for the next 5 or 6 years. Even if Stephon Diggs doesn't stay with them, which he may or may not be, because they voided basically the rest of his contract after the end of this season.
Right.
But they're set up for the long term at this point, and I really appreciate what they've done.
Yeah, it's a 1-year deal for Diggs. It was a super quick turnaround that not a lot of people saw coming. See, I'm not sick anymore, but the cough hasn't gone away. What is up, Capitan Rafucho? What's up, Raf? He's in the chat. Any questions you have, El Capitan Rafucho, go ahead and throw them in the chat right there. But yeah, it was a quick turnaround that not a lot of people saw coming. I think one of the main things was the fact that they brought in DeMeco Ryans, and he knew exactly what it took to fix the defense. And that is not to discount the contributions of erstwhile Raider. I mean, erstwhile means something different, but potential Raider CJ Stroud. And for those of you who don't know, last year in the draft, Dave Ziegler was gunning hard to bring CJ Stroud into Raiders Nation. And Josh McDaniels, being comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo, put the kibosh on that move. CJ Stroud could have been the Raiders quarterback in 2023. But instead, he guided the Houston Texans to the playoffs in a worst of first turnaround, the likes of which are very rare. And we got our, Farva. All right, yeah, that it was a good move for the Texans. It kind of funny how people move around the league like chess pieces. You have DeAndre Hopkins starting in Houston and moving to Arizona, and then moving on to Tennessee, and then you have Stephon Diggs starting in Minnesota, and then going to Buffalo, and then on to Houston, and so he's kind of replacing what Houston could have had if DeAndre Hopkins had stayed there for his entire career in a move like Larry Fitzgerald or Andre Johnson. But yeah, that they got Stephon Diggs now, so I don't know what I'm saying. There
They're just
wasn't
gonna
much to prepare for.
they're gonna be hard to deal with for a while for a variety of reasons. They have improved their team or this particular off season probably more than any other,
Yeah,
and they did the same last off season just by acquiring Stroud and Will Anderson and by
Will
hiring
Anderson.
D'Amico Ryans. I mean, they have made good move after good move after good move, and frankly, they were due for a run of good luck after employing Deshaun Watson for so long.
Yeah, and if you look at the whole D'Amico Ryan's thing, you have D'Amico Ryan's coming over, who's a defensive-minded head coach from the Shanahan coaching tree, and we have a defensive-minded head coach who's entering his first season as a true head coach, who essentially, I don't know if you could say rebuilt the defense, but he and Patrick Graham combined forces last year to create a juggernaut of a defense, to which we have added Christian Wilkins. So defense wins championships. And I feel like we have a defense that's in place to contribute to just that. So I'm
It's
excited.
funny. It's funny to say that Antonio Pierce um, and the defensive staff there rebuilt the defense because they didn't change anybody out. The personnel is the same. It's
Right.
just that as soon as they fired Josh McDaniels, everybody magically started playing better. As if they were cured from some kind of disease. It was very
Right.
strange. Patrick Graham suddenly became a super genius, and Pierce suddenly became this amazing leader of men we haven't seen since Bill Walsh, just because Josh McDaniels was no longer there. It's crazy how that happened. It's amazing.
Yeah. Not unprecedented, but and we kind of saw it coming. Um, I'm quickly reading over this Aiden Champion article um, on Raiders Today, and he's talking about Mike Mayock and basically the regime change from basically Rich Bisaccia, who had a lot of guys who were uh, playing for him, most notably Derek Carr. But people were galvanized behind Bisaccia. I don't think Bisaccia was making any decisions. I think he was basically leaving it up to his coordinators and Derek Carr on the field. I don't think he's that kind of coach. He's more of a special team schemer, a leader of men kind of thing, not an X's and O's guys necessarily. But you saw the way the Raiders played. They turned it around in the second half of the season. They made the playoffs. Lost a close one that was a winnable game, and that's what you want is to have a chance at the finish to be able to win, to stay close enough, and they were. A terrible play call. Nobody was open. Darren Waller was the best opportunity, and he was short of the end zone. So I mean, it wasn't a great ending, but they still were in a position where they were one play away from moving on in the playoffs. And then you bring in Josh McDaniels, and nobody bought into his system, and they struggled. They struggled for an entire season, and then they started struggling again. Regime change. Antonio Pierce comes in. Boom. A coach players got behind, bought in, played for, and what happens? They run off a better than 500 record, and they were in the playoff conversation to a very small extent, like towards the end of the season. But it tells you how much a coaching change can bring, and Antonio Pierce is that guy. And like you said, it's not like the personnel changed. What changed was Patrick Graham's ability to cook with the guys that he wanted to cook and put in the best position that he could put them in, and the team rallying around behind Antonio Pierce. And so basically, this article is Mike Mayock talking about the situation being fired. And that's kind of what he was saying. He was saying that he and John Gruden inherited a down and out team, a 4-win team, built it up to a 10-win team, essentially a 10-win team, even though Gruden got fired because of his thing in the same season that they lost Henry Ruggs because of his thing, and managed to make it to the playoffs and have a winnable game. Mike Mayock had a lot to do with that. And so I was just going over that article real quick. Um, there was another news item, uh, not necessarily of note, but basically, Darren Waller looks like he's going to be coming back. He says he hasn't made a decision yet, but he's going through physically what it takes to get himself ready for the season. Um, and he had some things to say about being traded. Uh, and he said people don't see a lot of the human element when it comes to moving across the country, finding somewhere to live. You don't have any friends. There's a lot of things that help a human being thrive, and those things get taken away from you. You have to rebuild and work through that adversity. Those are the kinds of things that you have to roll with when you're in this type of industry. And he was caught off guard that the Raiders traded him. He said being traded wasn't a surprise. Going to the Giants being the location was a surprise. His agent told him a couple times he was shopped around, uh, and he wasn't surprised by the fact that he was traded. He saw that coming, but it was the fact that it was the Giants. He thought Green Bay or Miami and some other teams, and that kind of speaks to the situation in Vegas before Mark Davis got wise and got rid of the people that put Waller in that position. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the one thing that McDaniel's regime was player friendly. And they did so very many people dirty, not the least of which was Derek Carr himself. I mean, you can talk all you want about, oh, is Derek Carr going to lead us to the Super Bowl? No, Derek Carr was never going to lead the Raiders to the Super Bowl. But Derek Carr didn't deserve to be treated like he was either.
Right.
He could have been handled a lot better. Waller could have handled a lot better. I think, frankly, everybody could have been handled a lot better. I would be very interested to see some of the conversations he had with the defensive staff early last season before all the changes were made, as to why things weren't looking the way they were at the end of the season. What exactly did he do to them that kept them on the leash, so to speak, that they weren't able to coach to their full potential? What was he doing, and why was it such a piss poor job?
Right.
Now, as far as Darren Waller goes, being traded to New York is not the worst thing in the world, because it's a very large city with a lot of nice places to live. And the one thing, if you have, will make your transition to a new place better is a lot of money. And Darren Waller had millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to work with. So let's not cry for Darren Waller here.
Oh no.
I'm sure he lives in a penthouse somewhere in central Manhattan,
Right.
with his, gorgeous athlete girlfriend or wife, I believe wife now, championship caliber woman right there. Good for him. No one should cry for Darren Waller. Darren Waller didn't show up. I mean, Darren Waller could have been a Raider for the rest of his life, but Darren Waller decided just not to play. And, whether or not he was hurt and decided to make business decisions like Deion Sanders used to do when he decided not to tackle people, it can be debated, but, probably the least egregious thing McDaniels did as the coach of the Raiders was getting rid of Darren Waller. He had more or less worn out his welcome with the fans and probably with the front office as well for just not being available. As we said before, the best ability is availability, and Darren Waller just didn't have it. And he hasn't had it for the Giants either. Let's not say they need him back so much.
Still doesn't have it.
He's still Darren Wallering out there, just like he has been for the last 3 or 4 years. And he's still getting paid handsomely to do so. If I got paid for every job I didn't show up to, I'd be a trillionaire by now, because there's a lot of jobs there that I haven't done. And Darren Waller hasn't done his either. So let's cut the shit.
Right. Right. All right. Moving on to other Raider adjacent stuff. Former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown doesn't seem too happy about new running back kick returner Cordarrelle Patterson, Raider legend Cordarrelle Patterson, being assigned number 84. Brown tweeted his displeasure on Thursday. I may have to retire a Raider, number 84. No.
No.
You
didn't play a single game as a Raider. You decided to
No.
pitch a fit and freeze your feet off before donning the silver and black. You made a few good plays in practice, and that was about it. You made a complete jackass of yourself and made a fool of the franchise. And we do not claim you, sir. Once a Raider, always a Raider, but you were not even once a Raider.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not even
Also,
Antonio Brown.
let's not keep in mind when we're talking about being a return man. Antonio Brown once had a clear shot to the end zone against the Cleveland Browns. Could have scored a touchdown with ease. No one within 10 yards of him. Instead, he decided to veer to the left and basically drop kick the punter directly in the chest instead of running to the end zone. He chose to kick a man instead of scoring. That's the kind of returner Antonio Brown was. Now, in general, he was good, but if you just saw somebody he could kick, well, damn well, he would do it.
Yep. If it hadn't been for that Hard Knocks season, I don't think anybody would really remember. Anybody who does remember that Antonio Brown was a Raider at one point wouldn't. And I would submit that JT O'Sullivan was a Raider longer. Sorry, UC Davis legend JT O'Sullivan was a Raider longer than Antonio Brown was. All right, Raiders in search for a quarterback, and when you do that, you have to cover all the bases. So Michael Penix is coming in. Bo Nix is coming in. What's that?
Penix had his meeting earlier today.
Penix came in today. Okay.
Yeah. Bo Nix is tomorrow. So
I've done 4. I did a 3-in-1 podcast, and then I did 3 more. So I've done basically 6 episodes today. So I was a little bit busy. I didn't see that, but I did see that Bo Nix is coming in on Friday. So, I don't hate the idea of either one of those guys. I'm not enamored with the idea of either one of those guys at 13. But if either of them is available, say the Raiders trade their 13 and move back and pick up some extra stuff, I don't hate it. Still on the JJ McCarthy and Jaden Daniels train. But there could be worse things than guys with the amount of experience that Bo Nix and Michael Penix have in that room with Minshew and O'Connell and trying to see who comes out on top.
I've been thinking about this an awful lot today, and I was thinking to myself, would you, as an organization, if you were in charge, would you pass on Warren Moon? Would you pass on, Donovan McNabb? Because there were a few teams in McNabb's draft that passed on him, and there were teams in Warren Moon's draft that passed on him. He played the CFL and the USFL before he played in the NFL. He could have got his opportunity. Would you pass on that?
Would you pass on Vince Young?
On who?
Vince Young?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Well, yeah, because Jay Cutler was the best quarterback in that draft. I mean, Matt Leinart went right after Vince Young, and he wasn't shit. So yeah, you pass on Vince Young, you take Jay Cutler, and you laugh all the way to the bank. That's what the Broncos did. They were fine until Josh McDaniels got there and jettisoned Jay Cutler to the Bears, and now Jay Cutler is the Bears' all-time leading passer. I mean, it's easy. It's easy to pass on a guy who's super hyped, who may or may not translate to the pros. The Titans had a very short window of great success with Vince Young until he wore out his welcome in Tennessee. But Jay Cutler was solid to good for a very long time, and that's more what you want than a flash in the pan. And Matt Leinart was never good. Matt Leinart had a little bit of success when the Cardinals had a very good defense, but he was never able to sustain that. And it's a crapshoot. You really never know who's going to pan out and who's not. Interviews will tell you a little bit. College production will tell you a little bit. I mean, anybody who looks at Vince Young's college production and says, "Oh, this guy's going to flounder in the NFL," would be crazy. But anybody who looked at Jay Cutler and said the same was also crazy. I'm just saying you can get guys later. You don't have to trade up. If you fall in love with somebody, you think they're going to change your franchise, by all means, go and get them. Because that's what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes, and he certainly fit the bill. But you don't have to do that. You're not forced into that situation.
but I want him.
Okay, well, I mean that's Veruca Salt and Willy Wonka territory.
Right.
Daddy,
Yeah. I
bring
mean,
me Peyton Daniels. Daddy now.
yeah. I mean, it's all a crapshoot, and like I have said so many times, the list of top five quarterbacks that weren't good is very very long, and you can find guys later. But sometimes you look at a guy like Jaden Daniels and you're like, that can't be replicated later on in the draft, and
Well,
he's
let's
a
also
special guy.
remember the guy that Jane Daniels compares most favorably to is probably Lamar Jackson, who in his draft in I believe 2018 was taken with the last pick in the first round. And bums like uh I mean, Baker Mayfield was taken number one overall. I'm talking about guys like Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold. We're taken in the top 10, and then you
Right,
get multiple time MVP Lamar Jackson with pick 32. It's like, hello, if you take a risk, sometimes it pays off, but sometimes you can just trade it to the end of the first round and take somebody no one else believed in and have massive success. The NFL draft, that's what makes it interesting, because number one, number two pick are not always guaranteed. Like, friend of the show Steve Lawson just posted on Twitter, why would anyone use the number one pick? Why not trade back? I mean, when's the last
right.
time the number one pick panned out? And I said 98 with the Colts, Peyton Manning. You could argue that Carson Palmer had the same effect on the Bengals, made them more or less respectable and led them on their current trajectory of being very good. But anyone else? I mean, I can't think off the top of my head. Maybe Andrew Luck, but his career was so marred with injury, I'm not sure we can even count him. He was certainly well on his way to doing that. The Colts strike lightning. Lightning strikes the Colts twice, but that's just how the Colts operate. They kind of suck and luck their way into a good quarterback, and then suck again for the remainder of their existence. It's not very often that the number one pick is super duper amazing. It's not often that the number two pick is either.
Right.
But you get guys, and you see a trend. The good franchises draft these people. The Ravens draft these people. The Patriots draft these people until quite recently. The Niners draft these people, and they turn out to be absolute studs. Why? Because those are the teams that have good coaching staffs and can develop players. Everybody in the first round up to about pick 17 or so has an elite talent, skill set and talent level. If you develop those guys, they will look like they should have been the number one pick overall. I mean,
Right.
Christian McCaffrey was taken, like 6th or 7th by the Panthers, and you can argue he was the best player in his draft. And that's just because he developed and he was so preternaturally talented that, he was just better than everybody else. And there's guys like that. But you have to scout
Jared
them. You have to
Goff.
find them. Well, Jared Goff went number one overall, but he just got good.
Hashtag Nevada boys.
He just got good like last year.
That's not true. Matt Stafford was lauded for winning a Super Bowl, and he had almost exactly the same value year as Jared Goff did when he went to the Super Bowl
All
and
right,
didn't win. But
let
Matt
me
Stafford
rephrase
was a
that.
hero, and Jared Goff was a GOAT.
Jared Goff, let me rephrase that. He didn't get good just last year because he went to the Super Bowl with the Rams and lost. But no one in their right mind believed that the Rams were there because of Jared Goff. But
No, it was the defense.
With the Lions last year, everybody knew Goff was the man and Goff was him. And he's finally getting the respect that he's due for how good he actually is.
Right.
But Jared Goff didn't turn around the Rams by himself. The Rams made a lot of moves. So he's not in that Carson Palmer, Peyton Manning categories by any means. But he certainly has done that for the Lions.
He's in my Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
Well, you're a little bit biased, but Jared Goff,
I'm very much biased. I'm all the way biased.
Jared Goff most certainly is in that top 10 category of quarterbacks and deserves to be respected in that context.
Yeah. I mean, another element of the game, and QB wins aren't a thing, or shouldn't be. So when Goff went to the Super Bowl, he was playing against the Patriots, who were a very incredible defense. Matt Stafford's Rams went against the Bengals, who were a mid-tier at best defense, and that made a huge difference. But Matt Stafford got all the flowers, and Jared Goff had his relationship breakdown. All right, so let's look at some of these quarterbacks real quick. This is from the Sumer Sports, Sumer Sports Rookie Guide. Fantastic. These guys are incredible data analysts. Over the last couple months, a lot of the stuff that I've been using as far as like uh, corollary to combine production and draft order and things like that, a lot of those metrics all come from Sumer Sports. They do a hell of a lot of good work. They just released their draft guide. It's free to download. If you are okay with getting spammed a little bit, just put in your and they're not a sponsor, by the way. I use them and they're great. But you put in your email address, they'll send you the draft guide. You mentioned Andrew Luck. Looking at Caleb Williams.
Oh, I should also mention Cam Newton in there. He's probably in that category of,
Sure.
single-handedly turning a franchise around. The Panthers were bad, real bad, and then Cam Newton came in, and suddenly they were okay to good.
Yeah,
so,
but Cam Newton got bad real quick, and
he did. He didn't last too long.
Yeah. So Caleb Williams, his college statistical comparable with the percentage of similarity, he's most similar to Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck in terms of his college on the field production at a rate of about 13% for each of those guys and 12% for Sam Darnold. So basically what that's saying is that in the range of outcomes, performance from Caleb Williams at the level of Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck is pretty similar, but there aren't really a whole lot of guys who have the skill set and ability and profile that Caleb Williams does. So it doesn't hit a whole lot of comparability. He's fairly unicornish, and Sam Darnold is a floor, but not at a high rate of probability. Like 12% is not good. Moving on to Jaden Daniels, his biggest comps are Vince Young and Kyler Murray. 27% to Vince Young and 24% to Kyler Murray. So he's closer to those guys than Caleb Williams is to Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck. And I don't hate those comps. I wasn't huge on the Raiders in Kyler Murray's draft. I know there were a lot of guys like Hell Snake over on Silver and Black Pride who were, all like Derek Carr haters and really like into Matt McGloin, and they all wanted Kyler Murray. I don't think Kyler Murray would have helped the Raiders. I don't like his profile at all, but I know he's a good quarterback in fantasy, and I don't hate the comparability. If Jane Daniels can come in and be a quarterback on the level of Kyler Murray, albeit with a better skill set, I wouldn't hate that, and I wouldn't hate Vince Young. He's got a 4% comparability to Marcus Mariota.
That sort of comes from being your team's entire offense. And when you put up as many fantasy numbers as Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels did, you are more or less the entire offense. And that reminds me of rookie Cam Newton or second or third year Cam Newton, where everything runs through you. You're responsible for everything. You get all the credit and you get all the blame. And if we win because of you. And if we lose because of you. And that's how Caleb Williams' entire career has gone. I mean, why is Spencer Rattler being drafted out of South Carolina right now? Because Caleb Williams beat him out in Oklahoma and then left.
Yeah.
I mean, Spencer Rattler is no bum. Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback, but Caleb Williams,
relatively speaking,
and Caleb Williams straight up beat him out.
Right.
And, Jaden Daniels has had great success at two schools as well, Arizona State and LSU. But in both places, he was the offense. I mean, obviously in LSU, he has two first-round wide receivers, and that's fantastic. But, they have to have somebody get them the ball, and Jaden Daniels is that guy. The only problem I see with Jaden Daniels is his ability to avoid tackles. I remember once Sean Taylor in the Pro Bowl hit a punter so hard he flew backwards about 6 yards. And that's one of the most memorable Pro Bowl plays of all time and one of the most memorable Sean Taylor plays of all time. Rest in peace, Sean Taylor. And that's more or less what happens to Jaden Daniels whenever he gets hit by somebody who's much larger
Right.
than him. And in the NFL, everybody's going to be larger than Jaden Daniels. And he's not going to, bounce back like a Street Fighter character when Zangief hits him with a clothesline either. He's going to go down. He's going to go down fairly hard. Now, he needs to avoid those hits like Lamar Jackson has learned how to do. When's the last time anybody hit Lamar Jackson square and
They don't.
knocked his ass out? They don't, because Lamar
No.
Jackson knows what he's doing. And that's why Lamar Jackson is so great, is because he doesn't take those hits, because he knows how to preserve himself. And when Jaden Daniels comes into the league, whoever drafts him, he's going to need to learn those skills, or he's not going to last very long.
I think we all remember Hunter Renfro's sideline tackle against the Chargers in Mexico City. And he's 5'10", 180 pounds with lead in his pockets. And he laid the wood on somebody. So imagine Jaden Daniels getting hit by somebody who's 4 inches taller, 40 pounds heavier, and and much faster. Comparables to Drake May, 11% Joe Burrow. That's pretty enticing. 12% to Justin Fields. I don't know where that comes, but that's terrible because Justin Fields cannot throw the ball. And 23% to UW legend Jake Locker.
Oh boy! So he's going to go kiss his mom after the game.
I don't know what that means, but it's funny.
That's one of the things Jake Locker is famous for, is being intimate with his mother.
Oh, okay. As opposed to Zach Wilson,
Winning.
who's
famous
for being intimate with his mother's friend, his friend's mother.
Good on him. They need love too.
Looking over this real quick, time to throw. Drake May was 4th in the class, about 2.77 seconds per dropback. And J.J. McCarthy was 2.78 seconds per dropback. But in their efficiency, a lot of the ratings, J.J. McCarthy was better than Drake May. They both have a fairly similar ability to elude pressures and avoid the sacks. But Drake May scrambles a little bit more. J.J. McCarthy's comps, 20% to Jordan Love. I like that. That tells me hold a clipboard for a couple years. 21% to Christian Ponder. That tells me good backup, like career potential. That's probably a good floor for him. And 23% to Bryce Young. And let's not forget, Bryce Young is uber talented, but too small. J.J. McCarthy is much, much bigger than Bryce Young. So somebody who's much bigger than Bryce Young, with Bryce Young's ability to throw the football, the mentals that Bryce Young has, and the fact that the quarterback would not be going into Frank Reich's 2023 Carolina Panthers regime. That's not terrible. I don't hate that one either.
I mean, there's a reason the Panthers have shelled out ridiculous amounts of money for certain guys, Robert Hunt especially, and it's because Bryce Young got absolutely murdered last year. Anybody who watched Bryce Young in Alabama knows he's super, super talented, and he can make all the throws, and he can do whatever you want him to do as long as you protect him, because he is pretty small. And the Panthers have put their money exactly where they need to put it this year, and hopefully Bryce Young, for his sake, will have a better year going forward, because last year was not it. You absolutely have to have a good offensive line around that guy. Now, of course, one of the reasons the Panthers were in the position to draft Bryce Young in the first place was because their offensive line sucked. But if you're going to do that and draft a guy like that, and not say Anthony Richardson, who's 1 billion feet tall and 5,000 pounds, you're going to need to put something around him. But that takes time. So the Panthers are doing it incrementally, as they should. So they'll be fine. They're just not fine right now.
And Bryce Young will be fine too. I think that as long as Bryce Young can stay upright, I think that his ability is going to start to come to the fore. He's got the draft capital to keep a job, right? So they're not going to move on from him anytime soon. So he does have a few years to be able to kind of fit his shoes, as it were. especially with Dave Canales coming over and being a quarterback guru and all that stuff. He does have better days ahead. Frank Reich is a tool, and we've known that for a long time. Surprising efficiency metrics out of Bo Nix, QB1 in CPOE, 2 in EPA per play, 2 in EPA per play in the passing game, and very elusive, hard to sack.
That's not surprising at all. Bo Nix not only has the most starts of any quarterback in college football history, he has the highest completion percentage of any quarterback in college football history. So for him for us to say he's efficient, well, no shit, Sherlock. Of course he's efficient. He completes almost everything he throws, and you can't really get him down. The only ones who got him down last year was Washington, and they have a tremendous defensive line. It's very difficult to get this guy down.
There is an alarming stat, though, of the top 6 quarterbacks. He has a negative adjusted air yards of minus 1.92.
Yeah, that's because he was constantly throwing designed passes behind the line of
Bucky Irving, right?
That's not because he can't do it. That's because that's what the Oregon offense was. They spread you out horizontally. They do that because they're faster than you. They do that because they can. That's by design.
Right. And there aren't a lot of analogs in the NFL for that. So his comps are 14% to Bryce Young. I think that's the best that can be said. 14% to Kenny Pickett, and 13% to Drew Lock. That's
well, he's not as mistake prone as any of those guys, so I wouldn't be super worried about it.
Michael Penix Jr., elite efficiency, usage rate, time to throw. He had an incredible offensive line ahead of him. Adjusted air yards was good. CPOE and EPA per play were good. Doesn't scramble much. He kind of stayed static in the pocket. But pressure to sack percentage was very low. Again, like that's his. He wasn't sacked a lot when he was pressured. And that's his ability to flash and get rid of the ball. His comps, 43% to Mac Jones, 15% to butt fumble, and is that a 3 or a 9? Oh, 8. 8% to Matt Ryan. So, that's Matt.
Mac Jones as a rookie was very good. Mac Jones sort of degraded after that. Let's not forget Mark Sanchez led the Jets to 2 consecutive AFC title games. I mean, the butt fumble is what he's known for, but when he was on the field, he wasn't terrible. He wasn't anything exceptional either. I think he was more a victim of playing in a division with Tom Brady and having the expectations super duper high. But sure. Mark Sanchez wasn't awful. I mean, he's a guy who, if he came into the league today, would be just as highly valued a prospect as he was back then. The Jets traded up significantly to get that guy, and didn't reach the Super Bowl mostly due to bad luck. It wasn't due to Mark Sanchez being terrible. He's known for one stupid, awful play, but let's not pretend his career was bad.
No, but I will never say anything good about somebody who went to USC that did not have the silver and black wash that stink off him.
Oh, I agree completely.
Yeah. All right. So before let me skip one. All right. So I'm going to jump the numbers. Was that 6? I'm going to jump the number 7 to the number 8. So let's talk about Michael Pratt real quick. Tulane quarterback. Comps, 10% to Colt McCoy, 12% to Jaron Hall, 15% to Desmond Ridder. None of those sound great.
Those are all career backups. Good, not bad ones, but career backups.
Sure. But I will submit that I like those better than Spencer Rattler's comps, which are 32% to Bryce Petty, 23% to Brock Osweiler. Am I mistaken? He signed a huge free agent contract and then beat us in the playoffs.
He did, but that was because Derek Carr had a broken leg that day. So,
and 10% to the Raider legend, whom Brock Osweiler beat in the playoffs, Connor Cook. One of my favorite anecdotes of all time And when I say favorite, it's one of those things where like you like smile while you're crying. Um, in the draft that the Raiders took Connor Cook, Jerry Jones, Jer had his eye on Connor Cook, and that was his target. And Jack Del Rio or uh, Reggie, whoever it was that was making the decision, reached up and plucked Connor Cook just to piss off Jerry Jones. And it worked. But it also made Jerry Jones go, fine, we'll take Dak Prescott.
See, this is what I'm talking about. You don't got
Yeah.
to take Vince Young. You can take Jay Cutler. You don't, whoever you think is good, maybe not. Maybe the next guy is good. But Dak Prescott also was a running quarterback in college at Mississippi State. He wasn't that great. He only became who he is by being on the Cowboys. Maybe if he'd been drafted to the Raiders, he would have turned into Dak Prescott. Maybe he'd still be the running guy that he was before. I mean, he was basically Justin Fields without much of an arm at Mississippi State.
Well, if he had been taken by the Raiders, then I probably would have been able to get sideline passes in Oakland quite a few times because his cousin is my barber. I mean, when I say that, I mean his cousin is my friend who is a barber and has cut my hair before, but I do my own hair. All right. Anything else of note? I had a really good conversation today. So there's a running back analyst that I've been following for a long time. It takes a lot to get my money, and he is one of the few people that I pay Patreon for every month, just because I like his analysis so much. And he focuses on running backs. So and he's not a guy who, like me, does a lot of uh, numbers on paper, but doesn't grind tape. I watch film because I watch games and I watch like highlight videos and stuff like that, but I don't grind tape. This guy does both. He grinds tape, he looks at analytics, and he also creates his own models based on like his own rating system based on what he sees on tape.
That's advanced nerdery right there.
Oh, we say obscurist. We don't say nerds. No, his name is Noah Hills, and he has a website called Noah More Parties. NOAHMOREPARTIES. One word. NoahMoreParties.com. Some of the best running back analysis that's out there. And the only reason I got him on the show today, and really a 2-hour conversation about rookie and college running backs. It was phenomenal. So anyway, the reason that I got on is because he sent all his patrons an email saying end of April he's not doing content creation anymore because he's going to law school. So this guy is sharp as hell. Lives in Boise, so if you're in the neighborhood, look up Noah Hills. Anyway, I was asking him about like some unsung running backs in this 2024 rookie class, thinking in my head maybe it's somebody that the Raiders could take in the 4th or 5th round to kind of supplement their running back room. And a guy that he was like similar to other analysts that I hear where they're like, I didn't give this guy much credit, but once I started watching the tape a lot, he really started to kind of like really sink in, and that's Will Shipley from Clemson. Now, I know we don't have the best history with taking guys from Clemson, but Will Shipley, as a guy who is more like he is good in the passing game, so he can fill the role as the third down back, but also does have some primary running back skills to him. Could be like a really late sleeper. Grab him in the 4th or 5th round. He can back up Zamir if it's necessary. He'll be better than Madison, like off the rip. But back up for like a handcuff to Zamir White if it's necessary. But also he can get in there and play the third down running back role. He's good in pass protection. So that was an interesting conversation, I thought. Any thoughts on Will Shipley?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Clemson, which I have quite a bit over the last couple of years, Will Shipley is everywhere. He's kind of a do-it-all guy. like Travis Etienne was before him, and Travis Etienne was a first round pick. Whether he earned it or whether because the Jaguars are stupid, that's debatable. But Etienne has been a good pro running back.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that Shipley will as well. He's fast. He's good at blocking. He's good at catching the ball. He can do whatever you need him to do. I have no doubts that Will Shipley will be a good pro. None whatsoever.
So we draft Will Shipley round 4. You say
I think you might be able to get him a little bit later than that. I don't remember him, standing out a lot at the combine, but I think if we get him in the 4th to 6th round range, I think that's a win.
okay. I agree. I'm sold because I like Noah's analysis and I like your analysis too. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. I really stretched out 46 minutes.
Did.
Going from not having any content and thinking that I was flying solo, 47 minutes in, and we talked the entire time.
I do want to bring up one thing before we get out of here. In the 2010, I believe, draft it was, or it might have been 2011. I'm not really sure. It was the Cam Newton and Brady Quinn draft, and Brady Quinn. Cam Newton obviously went first overall, as he deserved to, but Brady Quinn fell and fell and fell and fell until it became kind of a meme that the cameras kept looking at him and no one had taken him yet. And they kept looking at him and no one had taken him yet. And it's like, where is Brady Quinn going to go? And Brady Quinn eventually was drafted, but it was a long, long time. And every year, it seems that somebody we think is going to go really, really high falls. Now, of the 6 quarterbacks that we have talked about primarily, those being Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix Jr., which one do you think is likely to be the one that falls and go in, and how late do you think he's going to be available?
Drake May.
I think so too. That's the guy I had my mind on. It's like, we've heard a lot of hype for the other 5 guys. We haven't heard jack freaking shit about, Drake May and where he's going to go. I think Drake May will fall basically to the end of the first round. Somebody's going to trade back up to get him.
One of the things that bothers me about May, and like I would watch him play as a freshman, and I was impressed. And I have tweets that are out there like, this is the quarterback 1 of the class. Now, that was before Caleb Williams had a starting role anywhere. That was when Jaden Daniels was still, kind of like in the infancy stages. Bo Nix was a post-hype prospect that really wasn't ever going to do anything. Michael Penix was an injury risk from Indiana. So when you consolidate the top of this draft, Drake May was the only one that came out as a freshman, had a starting job, and was productive. He put a bunch of guys into the NFL over the last few years. I had he was legit from day one, is basically, as an 18-year-old, is basically what I'm saying. But over the last couple of years, and weirdly, because he went to UNC, University of North Carolina, similar to Sam Howell, he regressed over year 2 and year 3. He wasn't as good the last couple of years as he had been before. The other guys did the opposite. They improved. Bo Nix improved. His 7 years in college wound up working out for him. J.J. McCarthy was just solid all over the board. Michael Penix, I saw improvement year over year with his footwork, with his reads. Caleb Williams went from taking over to being the consensus 101. Drake May, it feels like over the last year or so, people have been talking about him as the QB2 just because they didn't want to be the one to say he's number 7. But I don't think, I think he's better than Will Levis. If he falls the way that Will Levis did, I'd be surprised. I won't be as surprised as what happened to Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, that's still a thorn in my side.
It reminds me the last time I remember somebody as, brand new as Drake May, being as lauded as Drake May was at the time, was Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck came out and he was he was a super freshman, this super sophomore. But Andrew Luck kept getting better and better and better and better and better to where when he was drafted, he was basically as good a prospect as John Elway had been. And John Elway is the greatest college prospect of all time going into the pros. And Andrew Luck is on that level. He improved so much that he became on that level. But Drake May kept getting lower and lower and lower and lower. If he had kept improving the way Andrew Luck did, we wouldn't be talking about Caleb Williams right now. It would be Drake May of the Bears, and it wouldn't be any question about it. I don't think Drake May is untalented. I just think when you draft a guy in the top 10,
Stanford Horseface. Sorry.
But I'm talking about the level of prospect. When you draft a guy in the top 10, you want to see him improve year after year. And we didn't see that. Whether that was because of scheme or coaching, or was because his wide receivers were ass, which they were. Who knows? But Drake May needed to show more than he did, and that's why I think he's going to fall.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree. That was the one that I thought of. I think J.J. McCarthy is steamed up enough. I think Jaden Daniels is steamed up enough. Caleb is consensus, and Chicago is basically like ready for him. They've laid out the red carpet. I don't know. I look at Chicago, and I was always interested in Matt Eberflus as a head coach. Turns out it's a good thing that I was wrong. But you could do worse than being a rookie quarterback going into a situation where you have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, go Cal, and Cole Kmet with DeAndre Swift coming behind you and Roshan Johnson like on his heels. Khalil Herbert's still in the building. If they can figure things out with that offensive line and their play scheme with Caleb Williams, I think the Bears could turn around pretty quick too.
Well, with any luck for them, they'll pull a Texans and do what the Texans have done, as we discussed at the beginning of the show. I just don't think their defense is good enough right now. I think the Packers and the Lions are still going to steamroll them. I think they're a few years away and a few drafts away from being where the Raiders are right now. But they will at least have their quarterback in place, which currently the Raiders do not. But if the Raiders did, they would be upper echelon where the Bears are looking to be and where the Lions currently are. So, the future holds good things for people who draft properly.
Lesson for us all to take home. Go play Underdog Fantasy. Use the code Undroppable. They'll do $100 match on your first time deposit. That's $100 free dollars. I don't mind $100 free dollars. There's a couple of tournaments going on right now. Get in there, play some best ball. Pick your players, set it and forget it. There's no managing leagues, setting your lineups or whatever. You just pick your guys and that's it. And there are millions of dollars in prizes that are out there. Go to Underdog Fantasy. Undroppable is the code to put in. Thank you guys for watching. I just didn't feel like pushing the button for the pre-recorded ad reads. Thank you, Tyler, for hopping in again. We'll be back with you next Thursday, 8 p.m. Pacific time. Hopefully, we'll have something more to talk about because this rehash business is not it's not the most fun thing. So thank you guys. Thank you, Raider Nation. And Tyler, I will talk to you next week.
All right. Peace.
Bye-bye.